So welcome to another episode of Coffee with Paul, and once again, same structure. I've got a series of questions here in front of me that I've pulled from social media, and I'm going to be answering them as honestly as I possibly can. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, and also leave a comment. Leave a comment wherever you're watching this video, and let me know your question. Let me know what you want me to answer. You can't see, but behind these two cameras, there's a guy called Isaac. And this is why the quality of this video is a lot higher, because we've been doing a lot of content over the last couple of days, and I wanted to just jump on and do another episode of Coffee with Paul. So let's dive in. First question: dealing with mental health as a parent. I struggle a lot with anxiety, and trying to be a mum at the same time is hard. Do you have any advice? It's funny because I've wanted to do a video on this, and I will be doing a video on this, because I believe that being a parent is a really difficult task. It's a really difficult job, and I think as parents as well now, we can easily judge ourselves whether we're being a good parent or a bad parent. And also as well with social media, we sometimes go on there, we see other parents, we see happy families, and of course it's a complete highlight reel. We don't see the full story, but we're very judgmental of us as parents. And when we are struggling with mental health, it's a lot harder to be the parent that we want to be. And I think we have to really prioritize self-care. We have to prioritize ourselves to be the best parents that we can be. And I just know personally from being a dad that if I'm not looking after myself, if I'm not looking after my own mental health, then I'm not doing the best that I can for my children. And there's just a real, a society pressure of just being there always for our children. And the way that we do that is we have to neglect our own self-care. But I think it's a complete wrong way of looking at it. We need to look after ourselves first before we can look after our children the best that we possibly can. So please, if you are struggling with anxiety, if you're struggling to be a mum and trying to balance the two, the advice that I would give for you is to take some time out for yourself, look after yourself first, and that will hopefully help. It's definitely a massive, massive challenge. Did you feel guilty when your dad took his own life? Big question, and we've been talking about guilt over the last couple of days. 100% guilt. When you lose someone to suicide, guilt is the emotion that eats away at you, and it ate away at me for a long, long time. I felt guilty about the day that I saw him, so the evening that I saw him, when I knew that he wasn't right, but he'd just been discharged from the mental health unit. We tried so hard to get him back in there. It was an up and down battle of about 6 months. I just didn't know what to do anymore, and I literally went home and said Dad will be better. And I went to work the next morning just praying and hoping that he would be better, and with him being my dad, I just believed that it would be okay. And obviously he took his life that day, so I never saw him again. And the guilt that I carried from that moment of believing that I should have done more was massive. And I think with guilt, it just eats away at you, and it's something that you can't control. You can't change the past, you can't control the past. And when I realized that there was probably nothing that I would have done that could have changed my dad's decision or his suicide, and there was nothing that I can do now in my power to bring him back, then that's when I could start to move forward. But 100%, I felt guilty, and guilt ate away at me for a long, long time. I still have moments as well when I continue to feel guilty, and there's sometimes things that trigger that as well. But yeah, I just remember that I can't change it, I can't control the past, and I have to try and move forward. Next question: I've been struggling with mental health for the past year and struggling to work like I used to. I beat myself up for not being the old me. What can I do? So I'm guessing just struggling to go back to work because you've been struggling with mental health. Again, it's our own expectations of ourselves. We have this own picture of who we need to be, probably based upon who we used to be, or also who we see on social media and who we compare ourselves to. And I always say this expectation that we have of ourselves is completely self-inflicted. I have a huge expectation of me, and sometimes that can really affect my mental health, because I'm always expecting a lot of myself, and you judge yourself for that. And I think this question really summarizes that. You're expecting more of yourself because you're comparing yourself to the old you, the person that wasn't struggling with mental health like you are now. So I think the advice from that standpoint is, don't beat yourself up. Don't compare yourself to the old you. Just do the best that you can now. Know that people are there to support you as well. From that, it sounds like you said before that question that your work is supporting you. Know that they're there to support you. Don't compare yourself to the old you. Do the best that you can and try to reward yourself for the small wins. You might not be the person that you used to be, but you can progress forward, and you just have to reward yourself for the small wins that you have every single day. But yeah, high expectations of ourselves are definitely a massive issue. Do you ever get upset when you hear other people's stories? How do you deal with it? Personally, it must be draining. It's important to drink coffee through this. I never drink coffee through it. Do you get upset when you hear other people's stories? How do you deal with it? Personally, it must be draining. I'm getting a lot better. We did a road trip end of last year, and that was massively draining. We went to a lot of locations. We traveled around the UK. We met with people. They all shared their stories, and it was massively draining. I remember coming home and just bursting into tears. I was tired. I was exhausted. And I think for me personally, when I started to share my story and people started to share their story back via message, in person at events, I'm I'm an empath, and I tend to just bring everyone else's problems on board, and that's what I was doing. So I was listening to everyone's story, and then I was just bringing it on, and I could almost feel not feel the pain that they were going through, but I could almost really see what they were experiencing, and it's emotionally draining, and that massively affected me. So there was a short period of time, end of last year, that I just stopped posting for, it wasn't long, about a week. And that week was for me to start to learn how to learn to detach myself from other people's stories and other people's problems. And again, I think that's you might hear that and believe that it's a selfish attitude, but I have to learn to detach myself from other people's problems to protect myself, to protect my own mental health. And it is draining when people are, you know, when you're taking on other people's problems. But now I see it in a positive way. If someone's sharing their story and I've helped them share that story, then it's a massive positive. They're getting it off their chest. They're, maybe sharing it for the first time. I see it in a positive now rather than letting it emotionally drain me. But yeah, detachment from that has definitely helped. I hear a lot of bad comments about social media, but personally it's helped my depression. Where do you stand with it? Social media is that double-edged sword. Social media has so many advantages. So for me, I use social media as a platform to share my story, to raise awareness for mental health, to try and obviously help others. And without social media as well, in my previous business, I would never have been able to get it to where it got to. And for the last sort of about 9-10 years, I've been able to create a career around social media and around the internet. So I love social media for that. But the bad side of it is, one, the comparison. So again, everything that we see on Instagram, it's purely a highlight reel. We're seeing a photo of a happy family, or a photo of a relationship, or a photo of someone at the gym. And we're seeing a small caption with it, and we're completely comparing ourselves and our reality to what we're seeing on social media. And we're comparing our reality to a highlight reel. It's as simple as that. And that comparison can be very, very negative, and it can make us beat ourselves up. We can lose self-esteem. The other downside to social media is just that instant gratification. We're always chasing more followers, more likes, and we're always looking for that instant gratification. And when we can carry that into day-to-day life, it can also be very dangerous for our mental health. The other thing as well, and these are all the negatives, but it's very isolating. When we're on social media, we're very connected, but it can also make us feel very lonely. But the difference is, and I think some of the positives of that with social media is, it's isolating, but at the same time, there's so much community out there. You can join support groups, and you can relate to other people that you may not be able to relate to in your local area, or at school, for example. So there's a lot of positives when it comes to community there. And also, I was speaking to someone the other day, and it was a really interesting point, and they said, when you don't feel lonely yourself, social media doesn't make you feel isolated. It makes you feel connected. But when you actually feel lonely within yourself, social media can make you feel isolated. So sometimes I don't think social media is the problem. It's just a part of the problem, and we need to, again, focus in on our mental health. I want to start raising awareness for mental health. What do you advise? Everyone's different. It depends. Find what's good for you. I first started sharing via a blog post. So that was the first way that I started to share the story. And then that took, I don't know, about a year after that to share another blog post. And then I started to share quotes, just image quotes. And then it was a photo of me with a caption about something to do with mental health. And then I started to share videos, and now obviously I do more and more and more. Then I started to do more talks. So I think just start slow. It's best to just start somewhere, whether that's sharing a story on Facebook right now to just your friends and family, whether that's messaging someone and sharing your story with them. You can message me and share your story with me. It's starting small and then progressing, finding out what works for you. And also as well, just knowing that it's about enjoying the process. 100% it's about enjoying the process. It's doing it because you want to do it long term rather than saying, I'm going to post this and I want to help thousands of people. For me, it's about posting as much as you can throughout the next 5 years and being a part of that change. 2 more questions. You've said at a talk I saw you at that your dad's suicide was really sudden. Do you know what happened for it all to change so quick? Now, the way that when I deliver my talk and in a lot of the videos, I always talk about how sudden my dad changed. My dad went from the person that had everything on paper, the full-time engineer, the part-time physiotherapy business that he was running, the runner, the dad that we all knew, to just someone who was broken, someone who was extremely depressed and, attempted suicide a week later. So it always sounds very sudden. But what I've realized over the last couple of months is my dad's suicide was sudden to us, but to him it wasn't. He obviously had a lot of thoughts around it. He obviously had a lot of demons that he was battling in his mind, but for him as a man, for him not being able to talk about it, the stigma that surrounded mental health, he couldn't express it. He didn't know what it was. He didn't know how he was feeling. And even though he didn't verbalize it to us, and even though he wore that mask to protect himself that this is what he was feeling, I strongly believe that there was no way that my dad woke up that day and that was it. Something just clicked. There was a switch that turned that made him feel suicidal. I strongly believe that my dad was battling with mental health for a long, long time, but obviously none of us saw it because we didn't understand it. And also he couldn't verbalize it. He couldn't tell anyone because he was judging himself on that. So even though my dad's suicide was very quick, I strongly believe that he was struggling with it for a long, long time. And that just brings it back to the point that we all need to be more open. We all need to know that it's okay to talk. The stigma that surrounds mental health needs to change because there are so many people suffering in silence. And my dad was one of them for a long, long time, but we just never saw it because of the stigma that surrounds mental health. And then finally, the last question. What projects are you working on right now? Loads. Too much. No, I've got it down to a few projects. One of them is I'm doing some work with the Sure Mind Foundation. So I'm helping them delivering some training into companies and also as well helping them with the marketing and just overall really helping the charity. It's a charity that have helped me in the past massively, and it's a charity that focuses on the next generation. And for me, being a dad now as well, I think focusing on the next generation, their mental well-being, their mental health is extremely important. And they do it through education, they do it through supporting, young people suffering with mental health. Also as well, young carers who are caring for parents with mental health. They do a lot of work there too. And they also do a lot of work around breaking the stigma. So I'm doing some work with them. We're obviously trying to work on the documentary. We're refining that at the moment. The Indiegogo campaign is still live by the time of me creating this video. So we're trying to raise again a bit more funds so we can go into production about this documentary. The documentary is all about, again, giving a voice to the voiceless and trying to share some stories around mental health. And also as well, for me, it's about exposing the broken mental health system and just showing what's wrong and hopefully as well showing what we can do to better it. And then finally, the third project that not a lot of people know about is an app that I'm currently working on. It's a digital platform that's going to be hopefully rolled out in companies to better support the mental health of employees. It's a big, big problem. There's a massive change that we need in the work environment to support the employees that are maybe struggling with stress, struggling with mental health. But of course, as a lot of people know, there's a massive stigma in an office environment or in a work environment that makes people not be able to talk about their mental health or deal with their mental health. And the platform that I'm creating is hopefully going to really tackle that and really support the mental well-being of people within the workplace. There's plenty more as well. But yeah, aside from all of this content that I'm creating, those are the three main projects too. So let me know what you think. If you've got any questions, guys, then please drop them in a comment below. If you're watching this over on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. If you're watching this anywhere else, just engage, like, share, comment. And it's been a great therapy session once again for me to share all of these struggles with you. But just to end it, you know, even though mental health is quite a negative topic sometimes, I just think that vulnerability is strength. And even though I'm sharing some really dark moments and some really dark times, for me it's a big relief, and it's quite beneficial for me. And I think that we need to focus in on vulnerability being strength, that we all have mental health, that it's okay to talk about it, and hopefully this video shows that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all soon.